Alright, the Lamborghini hoodie is back on because today we're talking about Lamborghini Aventadors. Now I think this is a relevant topic because we just saw the Lamborghini Revuelto SV, so we finally have gotten a new model of the Revuelto, and there were so many models of Aventador that I want to talk about which Aventador you should buy, which Aventador I would buy, which one's my favorite, and talk about all the different editions and stuff and what you really need to know about them. So let's jump into talking about the Lamborghini Aventadors. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel for me. Please like the video, turn notifications on so you see my content right when it goes out. Really helps me grow the channel, and I hope you guys have been enjoying the videos. So please subscribe if you haven't already. Now let's get into the Lamborghini Aventador. So the Lamborghini Aventador came out in 2012 and it went on a fantastic decades-long run. They started with the Aventador. We had an Aventador Roadster shortly after, and there were some special editions of the Aventador like the Pirelli Edition and the 50th Anniversario Edition, and these applied to the Roadster as well. And then we got to the Aventador SV, which was like the first track-focused, more performance-oriented version of the Aventador. Available as both a coupe and roadster, one of the greatest Aventadors ever made. And we'll talk about which Aventador is my favorite towards the end of the video. So the SV was fantastic. And after the SV, the Aventador had its mid-cycle facelift, where they came out with the Aventador S. Now the Aventador S essentially incorporated rear wheel steering, more screens on the interior, updates here and there, and a new front fascia, which is, you know, for cooling and everything and more aero, but it looks a little different is the important thing. And also most importantly, the Aventador S is the rarest Aventador ever made out of all the models, not counting one-off stuff like the Aventador J or whatever. Like, of production model Aventadors, rarer than an Aventador SVJ, rarer than an Aventador SV, rarer than an Aventador Ultimae. So the Aventador S, very rare. And then built on the S was the Aventador SVJ. Now the SVJ was like an even more hardcore Lamborghini Aventador SV, built on the S instead of the original Aventador, so it had more of the features. I mean, the SVJ has basically taken over the car world the last like 4 years, ever since it came out. Everyone's been talking about SVJs, wants an SVJ, etc., etc. The SVJ is fantastic. There were some special editions of the facelifted Lamborghinis as well. So for example, the SVJ Xago Edition and the Aventador SVJ 63 Edition. Very rare. Only 63 examples of the SVJ 63, and I believe there was only 10 Xagos, so not a lot of them. But that wasn't the final Aventador. After the SVJ, we had what I would call an SVJ touring, if you will, the Aventador Ultimae. The Ultimae was like the actual final Aventador. It wasn't the SVJ, which a lot of people don't know. It was the Ultimae. It basically had the powertrain of the SVJ, but with the suspension of like an Aventador S, so it was a little more road usable, but same transmission, same engine, everything like that. Fun fact about the Aventador Ultimae is 15 of them sank on a Volkswagen shipping boat. A Porsche Taycan may or may not have combusted, and it sank the entire ship, and there's 15 Ultimates at the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean, and they had to rebuild those last 15 because they were limited number of cars. They had to replace them and give them to the customers. So there are an additional 15 Ultimates technically at the bottom of the ocean. But so that's the overview of the Aventador life cycle. Like I said, there's some rare one-offs here and there, the Aventador J, for example, but that's not really relevant to the topic. So that's all the Aventador models. Now let's talk about which ones are the most collectible and what I think would be good purchases and why, kind of. Before I say which is the best to buy, I think I'll say my favorite so you can keep that in mind as I answer this question. My personal favorite is the SV. I like the Aventador SV Roadster specifically. I like the Roadster. Or the SV. I prefer the SV and the SV Roadster over the SVJ Coupe and Roadster. I just think it was a little more... The SVJ, I feel like they just stuck on as much aero and wings and everything as they could, and they did break the Nürburgring lap record with it, so that's part of it. But I think the SV was just a better looking car, and I also prefer the sound of the SV. It's a little higher pitched than the SVJ, and I think that's actually a good thing. I feel like it's more of a V12 Lamborghini sound that I expect than the SVJ is. The SVJ is a little deeper. It sounds really good still, don't get me wrong. I just prefer the SV sound. I prefer the SV looks. I like the exhausts on the SV better. The 4 exhaust tips right in the middle instead of 2 smaller spread out ones. The side profile of the car I think is just cleaner. Just everything about the SV I like better. I know a lot of people like the SVJ, but a lot of people grew up with the SVJ too, whereas like I remember the Aventador SV being the cool Lambo. So to me, it's an SV Roadster all day. If I had my say in Aventador, I'd get an Aventador SV. I'd love to one day. Hopefully that's a possibility. They're all getting so expensive lately that it's kind of ridiculous. I don't think an Aventador is $1 million car personally. It's fantastic in many ways, but $1 million was a Porsche 918 Spider not that long ago. It was a McLaren Senna, just way more capable cars. And so this market's very strange right now. We'll have to see where prices actually settle out at after all this non-stop up action chills out a little bit. With that being said, since the Aventador SV is my favorite, I think that's a fantastic purchase. They haven't gone as high as the SVJs yet, so I think there is more upside to them than there is with, say, an SVJ. Now, for the Aventadors that I think are good purchases, I think an SVJ is probably the safest purchase because that just has so much... Like, there are so many people that love the SVJ that I don't think there'll ever be a problem financially. They'll either keep going up or they'll stabilize somewhere and just stay there. I don't think you'll lose money on an SVJ. I do think if you paid $1.5 million for one right now, like they're listed for, I think you'd lose money because I don't think they're actually selling for that. I bet they're transacting a lot closer to $1 million than they are $1.5 million. We'll just put it like that. I don't think anybody's buying them for that much money. So buying an SVJ, as long as you're not actually paying whatever it's listed for, you'll probably be okay. Like I said, I'm not super into the SVJ, so I just couldn't see myself buying one, but I could see myself buying an Aventador Ultimae, which is like the SVJ touring like we talked about before. I think the Ultimaes, they're more limited than the SVJs, and honestly, I just think they're a better looking car. They don't have the rear wing on the back, so it's more of like a typical Aventador look, but with like the craziest powertrain. Those are fantastic cars. One thing I will say about the SVJ and the Ultimae, those later Aventadors had a lot of transmission issues that no one ever likes to talk about, but they did have problems, more so than the earlier Aventadors did. So maintenance-wise, you're actually better off with like the first, pre-facelifted Aventador. They made so few Aventador S's, you don't hear about the transmissions a lot, but I bet they have the same issues the SVJ and the Ultimae do. And there's more stuff to break in the facelifted one in general. There's more electronics, rear wheel steering, stuff like that. So to me, I think the SV is the ultimate Aventador. That's where I'd be putting money because I think it's the best combination of looks with performance, with sound, with some reliability. But I do think the name power of the SVJ will carry it the furthest, and I think the Ultimae will be right near behind it because I think the Ultimae will grow on people as time goes on, whereas the SVJ has kind of stolen the spotlight recently. Now, if you don't want to go for an SV or an SVJ or an Ultimae, I think any Aventador will be safe, to be honest with you, because they're V12 Lamborghinis. If you keep it in good shape, I think they'll all be okay value-wise over time. But if you can't get one of the more limited cars, I think an Aventador Roadster probably a safer bet because everybody always wants the one where it's convertible. Specifically on the pre-facelifted stuff, if you can get like an Aventador Pirelli Edition or like a 50th anniversary one or a couple of the other, weird editions that they made, those will hold their value better, especially if they're low mile. This isn't meant to be like an investment piece by any means. This is not financial advice or anything like that. It's just like, it's more of just let's look at all the Aventadors and I'll give my take on what I think are good purchases, but everyone likes what they like. Obviously, I like SVs. A lot of people watching this video probably prefer the SVJ. That's fine. But what I would do, I like the SV and the SV Roadster. If you were looking for a purely investment, I think the only thing you buy is like a 63 edition, a real one, Aventador SVJ, or like a Xago edition, like the super rare stuff if you really care about investing in the cars. But I'm talking about more, where should a car person be looking at the Aventador lineup and deciding what to purchase? It's so hard with the Aventador because they're all incredible, and at the end of the day, when you think about it, the worst Aventador is a 700 horsepower naturally aspirated V12 that kicks you in the back every time you shift, and it's just a super crazy driving experience. That's the starting point. That's a base 2012 Aventador. Then you can get one without a roof, so it sounds even better, and then you can get the SV, which is like just an even better version of that car, more power, more sound, more performance. And then you get the facelifted ones, which drive a little nimbler, maybe enough that like maneuvering them every day might be more enjoyable, but I don't think they sound as good. I just personally don't. But like the SV and J and the Ultimae are incredible cars. The Aventador S, like I said, that's the rarest car, so that's another angle if you want to take. You don't want to spend SVJ or Ultimae money. Get an Aventador S, it's the rarest one. So few of them will be transacting, especially as the years go on, that you could probably set the market for them at whatever you want in the long term. So Aventador S, another sleeper pick. Now that the Revuelto's out, it does have a naturally aspirated V12, but with that hybrid system and all the problems they're having, they're just not as reliable as the Aventadors, at least at this time. So I think the Revuelto in a way is helping the Aventador market, but it's not as extreme as like what the Ferrari 849 Testarossa is to the 458. Or even to the Pista. It's hybrid that also has problems, that doesn't sound good anymore because there's no more naturally aspirated V8 in there. I think the Revuelto is probably one of the better supercars on sale today, to be honest with you, but the Aventador was like the car. When an Aventador pulled up anywhere, everyone stopped, and they still do, which is the crazy part, So the Aventador will be a timeless piece, even if you want to buy a car, if you want to buy a car to collect it, buy a car to drive it. You can't go wrong with an Aventador either way. I wouldn't say buy an Aventador if you want to like daily the thing, like that's more of a Huracan, Audi R8 situation, but the Aventador is fantastic. It'll be collectible for years to come. I would love to have an Aventador one day, just to have it. I mean, the Aventadors are so cool. I feel like all the V12 Lambos are like, everyone wants one just to have it almost, especially like the Countaches and stuff. Like those are terrible to drive, but they look great. They have so much aura and iconicness behind them that, who doesn't want one? So that's my 2 cents on the Lamborghini Aventador lineup and kind of where I'd like to buy and where I think would make sense to buy if somebody wanted to. But, not financial advice, not investment advice, just what I think about the Aventadors. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please subscribe to the channel if you're not already. We've been covering a lot of Lamborghini topics lately, but I've got videos coming out on other brands soon too, and I've made a bunch last week on all kinds of cars that came out. So please like the video, please turn notifications on so you see my videos right when they go live, and subscribe if you're not already, and I will see you in the next Xago Anonymous video.